How Teddy Roosevelt went from being a New York City snob to a real-life Western hero. Teddy Roosevelt, Nobel Peace Prize winner, war hero, gunshot survivor. His motto? Speak softly and carry a big stick. This is the story of the New York City boy and how he became the leader of the Rough Riders. In his early life, Theodore Roosevelt faced health challenges, notably his asthma and poor eyesight. Despite this, Teddy refused to let it get in the way of his future, as his passion for nature and drive for adventure were nigh unstoppable. Born to a wealthy family in New York, Teddy picked up boxing at a young age, which ultimately allowed him to work past his poor respiratory health. His father, also Theodore, noticed his son's poor eyesight and gave Teddy glasses at a young age. Neither of them knew that this would ultimately be the signature look for the 26th President of the United States. Teddy Roosevelt's education was as varied as his life experience. He attended Harvard College, where he studied biology, history, and literature. In 1888, Roosevelt married Alice Hathaway Lee, the woman he had met at Harvard. Their marriage was a happy one, and they did have one daughter, Alice Lee. However, tragedy struck on Valentine's Day in 1884, when Alice died just 2 days after giving birth. Roosevelt was devastated by the death of his wife and wrote in his diary, "The light of my life has gone out." As if this wasn't enough, the same day in the same household in New York City, Teddy's mother Martha also passed away of typhoid fever. By this time, Roosevelt had already invested heavily into a pair of ranches in the Dakota Badlands. After this unimaginable misfortune, he chose to throw himself into the Badlands cowboy life, developing inner strength, self-confidence, and physical stamina. A year before, at the age of 24, Roosevelt arrived in the Badlands of the Dakota Territory to hunt bison. However, after the tragedy had struck, he was captivated by the rugged landscape and lifestyle, impulsively investing in 2 ranches, the Maltese Cross and the Elkhorn. During his time in the Dakotas, Roosevelt immersed himself into the life of a rancher and a cowboy. He participated in roundups, arrested thieves, and even got into a drunken bar fight with a gunslinger. Teddy Roosevelt's adventures in the Dakota were transformative for his life, and they did shape him into the man who would later become the 26th President of the United States. His time also solidified his conservation ethic. The devastating winter of 1886 and 87 resulted in the death of nearly 80% of his cattle, which ultimately forced him to divest from his ranches in the Dakotas. That is when he recognized the need for conservation and the protection of the nation's natural resources. The New York City slicker had matured into a real-life rancher and cowboy. It was in these years also that he ended up marrying his childhood sweetheart, Edith Kermit Caro. Upon returning to New York after the devastating winter, his life was a whirlwind of activity and change. He published several books, including Life of Governor Morris, Ranch Life and the Hunting Trail, and the essays in Practical Politics. These works reflected his diverse interests and life experiences. In 1890, Roosevelt was elected president of the New York City Police Board, where he implemented several reforms aimed at rooting out corruption and improving efficiency. His time in the role was marked by his vigorous efforts to combat crime and improve the city's policing. Although he was a great fit for the job, he knew he was destined for something bigger. In 1897, Roosevelt resigned from the police board to become Assistant Secretary of the Navy under President William McKinley. It was during this time that the Spanish-American War broke out, and Roosevelt saw an opportunity to serve his country in a way that aligned with his true passions. He resigned from his position at the Navy Department and volunteered to lead the cavalry regiment in the war. Roosevelt's regiment, the 1st Volunteer Cavalry, became known as the Rough Riders. It was composed of cowboys, miners, and college athletes. It was a colorful group of diverse men. Roosevelt himself was an inspiration to these men, leading them in the front and always putting himself in harm's way in front of his men. The Rough Riders saw action in Cuba, where they participated in the Battle of San Juan Hill. Roosevelt led his men in a daring charge up the hill, which was key in the victory for the American forces. His bravery and leadership, well, they earned him national fame and the nickname Colonel Roosevelt, which stuck long after. The war concluded and Roosevelt returned to New York City as a hero. He was elected governor in 1898 and later became the vice president under President McKinley. When McKinley was assassinated in 1901, Roosevelt became the youngest president in American history. If you've enjoyed the story of the greatest president of all time so far, go ahead, leave a like, leave a comment, let me know. I'll get started on part 2. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.